Next up, we're going to talk about our cabin time. You have probably heard us refer to it. Cabin time, we actually call it our sacred hour at camp. It is pretty much the most important time at camp. It is after our messages where we come together and we let kids just unload and process and really get to start to think through this gospel message that they've heard, and really try to pull out just what that means for them, the experiences that they've had, all sorts of those types of things. So in the binder that you will get at our meeting, we are going to have in there pages for cabin time, both that will explain what our messages will be about, but also an agenda, the discussion questions that we'll be giving you, and some rules, items, and places to take notes, all those kind of things. So we're really trying to make this as easy as for you as possible during cabin time. We want to go over just like how to do that and how to have a successful cabin time. This is after 10 plus years of doing camp, just what we've observed and learned that really has worked well, because we want this to be successful, and it can be challenging for kids. Whether they're 7 or even like the older kids can have a challenge with cabin time. So we want to set you up to have the best time possible. So first and foremost, we are going to meet in our cabins. At our Salem Adventure Camp, sometimes that does not work just based on the space, so you can find an alternate space. But if you have the space in your cabin, if you're at Camp Harlow, you will be meeting inside of your cabin. So the main goal of cabin time is to get kids to examine their life and understand the spiritual needs that they have, that they are broken and that they need a savior. And so the questions that we put in there, well, sometimes it might be like, why are we just asking about their childhood, or, this or that, is really to start to open these pages. It's not every single one is going to be directly correlated to, something that was said on stage. It's hopefully leading to that. Please follow the steps outlined in your binder. It's okay if you want to take a few different routes, off of that, but as long as you're generally following that agenda, asking these questions so that we can be guiding the kids in the direction that we hope they can go. Practically, we want all kids to be on the same level physically during our cabin time. So that means that we all sit on the ground. They aren't up in their bunks, and also that they're sitting up. I've seen a lot of times that when campers are either just leaning back, or even if they're laying forward, those eyes are going to close. It's been after a long day. They just had to listen, and they're listening some more. It's hard. It's a hard time of the day. So we need to just physically position ourselves so that we can have them paying attention as much as possible. And as Ellie mentioned, we will have lollipops, we will have chewing gum, and this is helpful to keep them focused, to keep them busy, even to give them just a little bit of sugar to help kind of re-wake their brains a little bit to be able to have these conversations. As cabin leaders, really we have a zero tolerance policy for goofing off during this time. We can kind of allow that during the day, we play around and that's fine, but cabin time is not a time where we're going to be playful, really. So if your campers are doing that, which in most cases you will have a camper doing that, they try to find any way possible to get out of this time. So zero tolerance. So what that means is that if you have somebody talking back, somebody making a distraction, somebody that's just goofing, we just ask that you give them a stern warning that that is not accepted during this time, that we are not going to behave that way. If it happens again, one of the leaders, we're going to ask that you take them outside, even if it's just, right outside the door for a minute or two to calm down, just removing from the situation. They know that you're serious about this, and then bring them back in as soon as they're ready to be reoriented. If it continues to be a problem, call, text one of your cabin leader coordinators. They would either be in a cabin time, or they might just be roaming right outside your cabin time area, so they can step in and take that kid maybe for a little walk just right around the cabin area. Hopefully you can still have some meaningful conversations during that time, one-on-one, but we don't want it to be a disturbance to the other campers. If your cabin time is getting derailed for any reason, so like I said, there's a camper that's trying to get it off track, and sometimes they just can get the laughs, they can get the goofs, or sometimes we've seen just everybody just shuts down. You know, even your campers who you can really rely on just stop engaging. That happens as well. So if something, whatever it may be, starts to happen, use a few of these tactics to try to reset. So you can pause from the conversation, pause from like, I have to get through this, and just try to connect. Okay. So we're going to use some of the self-regulation tools. We will talk more about these in our in-person training. Have everyone take a deep breath for 5 seconds, and deep breath in, deep breath out. Okay. Just start with breathing. They may or may not engage with that, but it's a great way to just get to reset our bodies. Okay. Have everybody sit on their hands, on their palms. So if you take your hands and you're just going to sit them under your thighs, and if you're sitting, just like have them sit crisscross applesauce, and then have them pull up for 10 seconds. So just use their muscles, pull up as hard as they can while their hands are still sitting under them. Do that for 10 seconds and then do that 3 times. So this is going to start to just re-engage their body, use their proprioceptive movement so that they can just be able to refocus. They have a lot of energy that they need to get out of their bodies, and this is going to be one way we can try to do that. Sometimes you just need to level with your campers. So you might just have to do a bit of a negotiation with them. You could say something like, hey, we have 10 minutes left of cabin time, and I really am needing you to focus during this time. So if you can give me 10 minutes right now, I can guarantee when this is done, we're going to go to dessert. You're going to go get to have a snow cone or a s'more, whatever it may be. And then just get a verbal yes. Can you do this? You can even go around the circle. Can you do this? Can you do this? And let them engage and know that you're willing to work with them and that they have a buy-in, basically, in this time. Okay? You can try to slowly work back into your questions, but if you need to just ask something to go off, that's fine. So sometimes you just need to go back to some of those openers, like, what was your favorite activity from the day? Or tomorrow we have something else. You know, what are you most looking forward to doing tomorrow? Or even something that's just totally off topic, that's like, if you were to have a restaurant, what would be your signature dish? Sometimes just getting them to think outside, away from, you know, our serious questions will get them engaged, and then you can try to rework some of those serious questions back in if needed. Just remember, right, we've mentioned this before, cabin time is not a time for leaders to preach. If there's a time to clarify the gospel, yes, we want you to do that. We want to make sure that message is clear. Don't go opening up and, you know, have a full-on Bible study where you're teaching or preaching at the kids during this time. A lot of times they will have questions, and that's fine if it goes there where your kids are just asking all sorts of questions about the Bible or about God. That's fine too, just as long as you make sure that the group is still fully engaged and that they have time to speak and process and all of the things that they need to do. You'll find that Andy or myself or cabin leader coordinators oftentimes like to sit in on cabin time, so don't be surprised if we just ask to pop in either at the beginning or maybe, you know, mid through. We just like to, you know, hear what the campers are saying and try to be as engaged as possible with the content. If a camper says something that is basically that needs to be reported, we all are mandatory reporters since we are working with these children. If it is something that is harmful for them, if they're in a situation that is, you know, of neglect or abuse, anything of that nature, whether it's current or even if it was in the past, that is something that we need to report. You will have space in your binders to write notes, and we are going to collect your binders from you at the end. So anything that you write down in there, basically it's going to come back to us. We will look through it. We'll probably follow up with you if you write something. Give us a heads up and be like, hey, I had something that was mentioned during cabin time, and we'll say, okay, write it down, and we'll follow up later. So just at least write it down, our place to record, so that we can follow up on that. Lastly, we just ask you to press on. This can be a hard time. Not always. Sometimes we have really great cabins who have really successful cabin times, but oftentimes we see that this can be a challenging time. So we just encourage you that although this might be challenging, just keep going. Don't give up. They are listening. They hear you. Even if they come back 3, 4, 5 times, it is making a difference. They are hearing us. So continue to press on. And the more that you just enforce those boundaries, enforce that respect, the more that you will be able to receive it from them.